Greetings and salutations to all you folks out there. I'm going to be casting another 1 versus 1 for you today. It is on the Forbidden Pass, and it's between some average Joe's ranked players, 900 to 1,000 rank, somewhere in there. Before I get started with this thing, I do need to say, if you have replays, send them my way. There is a Discord link in the description. That is an awesome way to get a hold of me. And then there is also an email address in the description. So either one of those, you can either private message me on Discord or send me an email directly with the file attached that contains your replay. Please watch them before you send them to check for desyncs, and the better the game is, the higher a chance it gets casted. For instance, steamrolls are usually not very fun to watch. Anything that's incredibly lopsided and anything where there's long periods of time with nothing happening. So, with that out of the way, and without any further ado, let's go ahead and introduce the players and jump into this game. Like I said, the map is Forbidden Pass. Let's take a look at the reclaim here right off the bat. Shift control, there's not really anything. Trees and maybe a couple little pebbles here and there. I don't know if there's even any rocks on this map. It doesn't look like there is. We've got Derbus on the north side. He is going Aeon. He's got first air factory with a couple of P-gens and a couple of mass extractors. That looks like a first bomber build to me. And then on the south side, we've got Aldarion. He is Cybran, going for the obvious choice of land first. He is going air second off of 5 power generators. He has got to be planning some manual reclaim, otherwise he is going to power stall like a mofo before this gets over with. So we're going to go ahead and check back with him in just a minute to see how his economy is doing. So typically on this map, the meta, as far as I understand it, is to take your ACU. You walk across to this beach over here. There is a pass that is pathable by your commander. You walk through and right up here, and that gives you a foothold on his landmass without having to go around the choke points. And you can grab these 4 mass extractors right here, relatively close to the base. That did in fact look like a first T1 bomber build, and he is doing rather well for himself on eco, +9, +72. Hopefully he can get some stuff building very, very quickly. The disadvantage to the T1 bomber build is that you don't get a whole lot of early expansion and units out. But the advantage is that if your opponent goes with an exceptional amount of engineers, you can snipe his stuff off. So there goes one there. He's going to deny the hydro. He's going to try to get in some damage on this power, I am sure. There goes another engineer. I can no longer say that a bomber has to kill 2 engineers. That meme is done. It is dead. Bombers now have to kill 3 engineers to be worth it. Or at least a couple engineers and damage some things that later go on to die. So, this is actually good because he's forced his opponent into building T1 mobile anti-air to try to kill the bomber, which is going to die right there after dropping another bomb, which is going to take out 3 power generators and a mass extractor. That was a glorious first bomber, hugely successful for Derbus and definitely worth the slowdown. You'll notice that he has got just as solid an expansion now as his opponent does, despite the fact that he had no early units. So on this side, I totally forgot to come down and look at what the power stall situation was, but he did get more power generators up immediately after that, and I don't think... No, he did build an air unit right off, but he did have engineers out reclaiming, so he was probably okay. Usually you need 6 to 7 P-gens for the T1 Air Factory second in order to not power stall really, really hard. But if you do have some reclaim, or you can manually pick up some trees, preferably tree clumps, so that you can just attack move an engineer and it vacuums up the whole mess, you should be able to float just fine. So he's going to keep those mobile anti-airs in his base. If I were him, I would be sending those out because you've already built them. You don't probably need them in your base because you've got some interceptors there after all, and it's kind of against the point of having T1 bombers to send them all to the same place to die. It would be better to kind of spread them out a little bit to try to protect your expansions, but it does look like since that first unit came out, that air factory is just building engineers, going along its merry way, and there's no further air from Derbus. So some return T1 bomber mischief would be in order. It looks like Deribus is trying to go all the way across to these mass extractors. Kind of a weird placement for the ACU. That is a long, long way to walk, and he is getting this expansion with the land factory. You know, I just realized, I think that engineer came from over here somewhere. Maybe they fixed the pathing across that. I am very curious. No, they couldn't have. There's still, it's got the same slope to it. This is a access point right here. So Aeon has an advantage on this map. They have hover tanks at the D1 stage and hover scouts, which are very important to keep with your tanks. And so they're not going to have to make use of the choke point. They are going to be able to cross the water anywhere they dang well please. And that is a frustrating sound. The hunters are a bad thing to have in the back of your base, but there are a couple of tanks moving in. He is going to lose one mass extractor. Nope, going to save it with 54 health, so well done there. That hunter, you really don't want to stop for something as invaluable as a mass extractor. You kind of want to kill an engineer or something with it. Probably should have run that back into the base, but that is neither here nor there, because it is already dead. We've got a couple of tanks out right here. There are 3 Mantis moving in, which should they close on these tanks should be able to defeat them 3-on-3, especially since they're, oh, no, there's a radar, never mind, I misspoke. So these Auroras are handily going to trump the 3 Mantis, keep that engineer alive with 16 health, and he is going to be able to finish off the rest of those mass extractors. So right now, map control is looking to favor, I would say it's favoring Deribus slightly, and he does have just a little bit more mass available to him, but the Mantis are going to be a little bit stronger than Auroras once they get lots of packs moving, unless Deribus can get tons and tons of tanks at his disposal. He's pretty scattered right now. The problem with Auroras is that they have half the health. So at this rank, I kind of assume that people aren't going to have perfect micro. If you have really, really good micro, then Auroras are devastating, because as long as you can keep them out of the reach of your opponent's tanks, they can kill huge amounts without ever taking any damage. However, if they're just kind of engaging in clumps like regular tanks are, then the Auroras have half the health and the same damage for about the same cost. Who do you think is going to win? The Auroras are going to die twice as fast. So it just depends on how good your micro is. And I'm kind of thinking that is going to favor Aldarion, especially since the Auroras dove directly into the engagement instead of kiting backwards away from incoming fire and using things like the factory for meat shielding. And I would actually not be attacking that if I were him. I would try to capture that factory, because Aeon Tech would be super duper useful on a map like this. There's a little bit of an air engagement going on there. Aldarion's going to come out way in the lead. He was denied finishing off these mass extractors, but Deribus's engineer got killed off by the same token, so nothing is going to go on down there. Trying again for that air, but not to be successful. Looks like Deribus has got a second air factory up over here, and he is building interceptors from both factories. But there are 2 factories online for Aldarion as well, and he has enough of a head start that I don't think he's going to be able, I don't think Deribus is going to be able to overcome the air superiority problem anytime soon. An attempted little run by there did succeed in snagging a mass extractor and the hydro, but that is going to be very quickly shut down. Now there are enough Mantis on this side of the map, excuse me guys, that I do believe this will be secure. I'm not sure why I am yawning so much. Very, very weird indeed. I guess there's a distinct lack of oxygen in the room. Aurora's moving in to cap off those couple of mass extractors there, and I really wish somebody would place a move order across the gap so that I could either confirm or deny that this is a thing. It looks like the confirmation is coming. Here they come, and right across the gap. There goes little Aurora climbing up the grade, zipping on over. That is about the best little bit of mountain climbing you'll ever see a unit do in Supreme Commander. Alright, bombers hitting these T1 unit clumps. This is actually a devastating thing. Cyber T1 bombers have really good area of effect, and they kill any Aeon T1 unit except the anti-air unit in one pass. So if there's clumps sitting around like this, you can feasibly kill 6 tanks at a time just with passes of bombers, which is obviously worth it even if it kamikazes on the first run. We got a T1 point defense going down, the bane of every Aurora's existence, as we all know. And then Aurora is crossing the water using that strength that I mentioned earlier. Scouts, actually. Scouts useful in a combat scenario. They took out the radar, preventing Red from seeing exactly where the units are moving in from. But here we see the first couple T2 units. We've got Rhinos on the field, which are going to deal with Auroras much better head-on-head than the Mantis will. Well, again, depending on the micro, like I said before. You can see the range there. Not nearly as much of a range disadvantage as the Mantis have, and I think they are still faster. I do not remember off the top of my head, and my mods are not enabled for more unit info. I think they still have slightly less range than the Aurora, but slightly more speed, and all in all, they just deal better with those units. But there's T2 on the field from Darabus as well. He has got Blazes, which again can hover. They're going to cross the water and start pegging away, plinking away with their minuscule little DPS at the build power on this side. Don't go near the point defense. That's a bad idea. 1 tank down. 2 tanks down. Although that one is going to skitter away, it looks like. Something to remember about the Blaze assault tanks, or assault tanks in general. They are not as hardy as their land-based counterparts. So should you have an engagement of main tanks versus assault tanks, the assault tanks will lose 95% of the time. And they typically do not do a massive amount of damage. The advantage to these, though, is that the Obsidian massively overkills T1 units. I think it's 400 damage per shot, something like that. And 1 shot every 4 seconds, whereas the Blaze has a high fire rate and quickly retargets. So there's not really any wasted DPS. Although, with the T2 units on the field, that is not going to be an advantage for a terribly long time. Red has started to take back some of the map control. Now, while Darabus still has a very large mass advantage, it is shrinking somewhat as Red reclaims the engagements that have happened so far, pushing up over 1,000 reclaim. Darabus only at 600. Actually, those are both quite low numbers. There have got to be, lots of wrecks just laying around the map. And oh my goodness, is that what I think it is? That is a stealth and attack launcher. Oh, this is going to be nasty. Nice play by Darabus. Gonna start killing those T2 mass extractors. I'm not sure what that was. Maybe hitting an air unit that was landing? Something like that. Tac missile impacting the ground there. 2nd mechs, 3rd mechs down. And still they are a-flying. Gonna get the Hydro, which is not necessarily your best bet. I would have tacked the T2 HQ. That seems like by far the most valuable target to me anyway. T1 bombers coming out. They have apparently sighted where Darabus is located, probably due to a power stall. That blip showed up on his radar for a split second, or possibly an air scout. I wasn't completely paying attention to see what flew over. Darabus getting a flak down that's going to take out any air that stays in the area, but that is unfortunately far too late. Oh my goodness, he's got it. There goes the T2 HQ. Aldarion falls further behind in income. So right now, Darabus is sitting very pretty on top of the pile. He's not got a whole lot of map control. He's lost both sides here, but he still has the huge mass advantage and enough units, I think, to defend. Although it looks like, ooh, these 2 tanks, T2 tanks, are going to be able to come up in here where there are literally no defensive units. Blazes, Blazes, why are you raiding into point defense when you could be up here defending your home territory? Here comes the units. There was a T1 radar on this side, but you see the range of that thing. Once this expansion was gone, this is one of those things where you need to think about what is going to happen next in the game. If you lose this one, more than likely the units are going to be coming around here next. So if you lost this and you don't respond to the incoming units up here, you are making a grave error. Darabus, with the loss of that expansion, is going to be knocked down literally to Aldarian's level and then down a story. 65 to 71 income, and now things can only get worse for him. There is the commander diving into the water. He's got a single Oblivion turret right here, but those are going to be pretty bad at killing groups of T1 units due to their slow firing rate. Medusa's stunning it and taking it out with the help of a couple of T1 bombers. Looks like an air engagement is going to be pretty tight. I'm not sure who's going to win that one. It largely depends on Micro, and it looks like Blue has that in spades. Darabus was winning that one until he made a couple of really bad turns and then flew over anti-air, and he's going to win it, but he needs to get the hell out of Dodge before anything else bad happens. T2 air is a thing, and there is a gunship out trying to prevent these units from making it all the way to the base. And it looks like he's got a Torp Bomber out, slowly whittling away the health of this ACU that got knocked down by about 5,000 HP by a couple of T1 torpedoes that were built right down there. This base is in danger of going away now. Aldarian has got enough units to punch through pretty much anything that Darabus can throw at him at this point, and this is where you definitely should be building Obsidians, not Blazes. You've got tanks practically in your base, and you're still building the weaker tanks, although these speedy sons of guns are headed up to try and save the base. Looks like there's not really any focus fire going on down here. I would definitely be focus firing the P-Gens and then the T2HQ, but I don't think there's going to be a chance for that. They are just going to damage what they can and wait for the Blazes to come in and kill them. 8,000 health on that ACU. Good thing about Cybern, they regen rather quickly, and Darabus is going to bring his ACU over in this direction. Nope, he is going to stop. He is going to build a naval factory. Why on earth would you build a naval factory? I have no idea. We've now got more units coming up from the south side. Those are not scouted. There is no radar down there. Looks like Darabus shares in my critical weakness of not getting enough intel. So now he's going to lose a T2 mechs right here, and then those are probably going to move all the way up into the base and cause even more problems. Blazes breaking away to come down and intercept, but again, I don't think Blazes are going to cut it moving forward in this game. Still got a Torp Bomber, still got a couple of gunships, and it looks like he is building T2 engineers in order to rebuild his base and reclaim everything up here. He did have a T3 mass extractor, strangely enough. This, folks, is what happens when you over-upgrade your economy. You have a lot of mass extractors, you have no map control to show for it. So you tell me which one wins in the end. Aldarion getting Mantis up into the P-Gens of his opponent. Darabus down to 920 power income, which is not enough until he mass stalls. So that reclaim was what was floating him. I take back what I said. He has plenty of power. There's got to be... Is there a T2 P-Gen somewhere? There is not. Just loads and loads of T1s. Blaze is trying to chase down these Mantis. It's a good thing when you're faster than a Mantis. Not a whole lot of units in the early game are. Looks like mobile missile launchers coming out to get rid of those torpedo launchers. I'm not sure why those are a priority, but whatever floats your boat, Aldarian. You're sitting pretty well right now. That is a lot of T2 engineers, and it looks like, yep, there's a T1 radar system going up and abandoning that factory for now. So things are going back into place. We've got T2 mass extractors built back up. Darabus up to 61 mass income, which is reasonably good as long as he's pulling in that reclaim. 5,000 total so far, by the way, as opposed to 4,500 for Aldarian. We're going to have to look at the graphs after this game to look at the mass income, because I'm very curious about who ends up ahead in this particular game. T2 gunships moving in to sweep up some T1 units that are slipping through the defenses, and there are still a couple of Vipers on the south side, so those can just sit at a distance, peg away at whatever they want to. I would be wanting build power at this point, but the gunships have found them, and there's a couple of blazes moving in. Unfortunately, Vipers are not very good at defending themselves. Excellent at taking out point defenses, really crappy at pretty much everything else. Well, I don't know. I have seen an ACU killed by mobile missile launchers before, but that is a fairly rare occurrence. Alright, so his shields are fluctuating. He does have some anti-air around here, so mercying is not really an option. And he's building another T2 P-Gen, which should put him on top. He is still holding strong control of the air. I think he lost momentarily and then doubled down on his production. Holy cow, doubling down. More like quintupling down. He's got 5 air factories there and 2 here for a total of 7, pumping interceptors out of every single one. There is a cruiser out of the naval factory, which immediately went to T2, which again is a very, very weird thing to do, especially when you're right next to this. There's a T3 land HQ for Aldarian on the tip. There's blazes working their way down the back, which is pretty bad. That was a really good raid by Darabus, and then he is going to get into the rear end of Aldarian's base. There is a pass right here where he can slip through the point defense lines, and then once he's back here, there is absolutely nothing to stop him. I am very curious as to why Aldarian upgraded a T3 HQ, built all of his power, and has his ACU approximately 2 clicks from the enemy base. Granted, you are behind a U-shaped rock formation, but there is a T2 naval HQ right over here that is currently building what I do believe is a destroyer. And I would be correct about that. So that destroyer is going to cause him some grief once it comes over here and starts firing into the base. Maybe the bricks can take care of it, I don't know. Why did you stop your blazes, Darabus? You could have done so much damage. That could have been so good for you. And instead, they're all just going to go down and not even in a blaze of glory. Well, I don't know. There might be enough blazes to shrug off this many T1 units, especially if they're standing there firing into the hill instead of actually hitting any tanks. But I am skeptical of what the reduced numbers can do now, especially considering the fact that there's a lot of T2 tanks in the area. A bit weird. I think at this point that Darabus just has a little too much on his plate. It looks like he's struggling to micro what he has. I'm seeing some buildings being placed by T1 engineers. I'm seeing some move orders over here. This clump has been forgotten about. If this is scouted, which I'm not sure it is. Darabus, what have you got? Nope, nothing, nada. Has no idea that that's even there. If those blazes came down here, they could wipe out another expansion. We've got all of these units clustering together on the right-hand side, which again are not scouted. And then we've got these units to deal with on the north side. Darabus at a little more than half the mass income of Aldarian, and is still just struggling with the map control that he lost just a bit ago. So this is going to be a bit hard for him to bring back, to be honest. I am not sure if he can do it. Aeon has a bit of a disadvantage later in the game. Is that a Shift G command? That is a Shift G command. I wonder what he's up to. Harbingers are excellent, excellent early game units. I cannot stress that enough. They pretty much knock the socks off of anything in the T2 stage, and they are a very good raiding unit, quite speedy. They can reclaim. They've just got the whole package going for them. However, once bricks hit the field, they're pretty much useless, and then even loyalists have extremely good chances against them. That's not good. Wasting loads of TAC missiles versus pre-built TMD. Volcanoes for Aeon are the only TAC defense that can single-handedly stop a Cybran TAC launcher. What usually happens is you build 1 or maybe 2 to defend yourself, and then you can knock down Aeon and UEF and Seraphim TAC missiles. The Cybran, of course, have the splitting TAC, which typically get through light TMDs. And if you have a heavy TMD defense grid, you're just costing the other player money because they have to build twice as many TMD to stop you. But Aeon doesn't split the missile, it deflects it. It either absorbs the entire thing or knocks it off course without splitting the missile. So it's a very, very useful tool in Aeon's arsenal versus Cybern. Blazes doing the dirty deed versus these T1. Blaze is exceptionally good at that, like I was mentioning before, but all in all, the numbers are going to get to them, and then further back in the group, you can see there are some rhinos mixed in, so these blazes are not going to be enough. The amount of air is terrifying over here. Oh my goodness, those are mercies. Why on earth did he build mercies? There is no way. There is no way that... Oh my goodness. You've got to be kidding me. Holy cow. Calculated lethal. 5 mercies at 2400 damage apiece to kill a 12k HP commander and win the game. Oh wow. Darabus, you did not deserve to win that. Oh wow, that was a luck shot if I have ever seen one. There's literally 75 interceptors sitting right next to where the mercies were coming from, but there's no radar here. The T1 anti-air got sniped at some point, probably by the destroyer maybe. That was probably intentional. So skill shot maybe, not so much as luck shot. Although there was a lot of luck involved getting those mercies through. As his base is going down, they've got to fly over enemy units, yada yada yada. This was looking super bad. Alright, let me take a look at the mass, and then I am going to speculate just a little bit about what happened in this match, if you'll forgive me for rambling just a little bit. I cannot access the score screen from... Well, that sucks. Alright, so we will never know. But what I can say is it appears that Darabus played extremely well in the early game, got the map control, got his eco down. He plays like I do. You lock everything down in the early game and then you just lose focus and don't follow up. And I think what happened was he was trying to do shenanigans. He had the tack launchers, he had blazes to make it across the water and harass in all these different areas. And he was doing really well playing around the edges, but Aldarion just played solidly. He built the right units, he handled them correctly, he got the expansions that he was supposed to get and started slowly taking map control away from Darabus, and Darabus kept spending mass on increasingly risky snipe attempts. The torpedo defenses, very expensive. The torpedo bombers literally can only target his ACU, and once the ACU comes out of the water, it's wasted mass. There really wasn't any hope of killing that commander with those torp bombers. That was another snipe attempt. And then he had the mercies. Basically everything was revolving around just losing the grip on the fundamentals of map control while trying to snipe the commander. I think if Darabus would have just played solidly and built obsidians and then pushed harbingers instead of playing around the edges of the map, I think that he definitely would have won that. Well played by both of these guys, though. That is a good, solid game. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Do not forget to send me those replays, and I will see you in the next one.